And good evening once again, ladies and gentlemen. We are back here. It's been a little bit of time, but hello, Aura. Some people are already popping on. Welcome tonight. It is the return of IncrediChat. It's been a couple of weeks, but here we are tonight, and yeah, who knows who can stop by, but I don't think he's stopping by tonight. But I will say we got a great show tonight, and amazing voice guest tonight, amazing author, actor, just fantastic. And what's going to be cool is if you're watching us tonight and you're in the New York area or the New England area, you're going to be seeing this guest this weekend at Saratoga Comic-Con in Saratoga Springs, New York, Saturday and Sunday. Without further ado, let's bring in our guest, Mr. Chris Edgerly. Welcome, Chris. Hey.
Hello. Hey, let me make it like it. Hey, look. Whew, man, I just barely made it.
Boy. Yeah. We're glad that you did. We're glad that you did. We got some people already popping by. So Chris, I kind of introduced you. We're gonna be at Saratoga Comic-Con this weekend up in the wonderful Saratoga Springs. I know we were talking a little bit before. This will be your first time up in the Hudson Valley.
Indeed.
You're going to get that nice fall feel, but it's going to be very dry. I don't know if we're getting any rain. I don't know if you saw in the news, there's a big drought going on here, but you'll see those fall colors though, and it'll be crunchy.
I live in the desert, so it's okay.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, I mean, I live outside of LA, so it's basically a desert. It's fine. Your dry air don't scare me.
but you don't get those fall colors out there in LA, right?
I think, yeah. I mean, actually, we live out where we can get some foliage,
Really?
some nice fall colors. Yeah, we like it out here, but nothing like, like I tell my wife this. She's from Venezuela, so she doesn't know what upstate New York looks like. And I said, there's an entire painting movement, I think, from the 19th century based around the Hudson Valley. So it's amazing.
Yeah,
I think it was 19th century. I don't know.
The mountains, the leaves. I don't think there's any snow in the forecast this weekend, but heck, it's upstate New York. You never know what can happen.
Yeah, we were in Detroit earlier in the year and it snowed, and that's enough for the year for me. That's enough.
It's nice to look at, and get in and out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
So Chris, I'm excited to talk to you tonight because I think for some of the other people who'll be tuning in, you were in a lot of, that right time, right moment, I guess, of television shows where they're adult animation with the Adult Swim thing, Comedy Central. That's kind of, I guess, where I was first introduced to it. And I certainly want to talk about Peter Potamus. I love Harvey Birdman.
Sure.
I'm a Hanna-Barbera geek, so that show kind of hit me in many spots, good and bad, because it was an interesting take. But I guess let's just go back a little bit here. I know you were a stand-up comic.
Yes.
How did you get started in this business, going from comedy to voice acting, and then I even want to get in, how'd you get being an author now? So let's hear a little bit about that.
Well, when I was growing up, I discovered I could do voices, and first I did them just to sort of amuse my brothers. Then I widened my circle of performance to just friends, and then strangers, and then if we had to tell a story for class, mine would be comedic and it would have voices in it. And when you get that laugh, it's like a sugar rush. And you just realize that, okay, I think I want to do something like this. And yet I didn't seek out school plays to be in. I didn't gravitate towards that kind of performing. I just wanted to make people laugh. And I wasn't necessarily the class clown, because the class clown usually would get in trouble. They would draw too much attention. And I was a little bit more of a goody two shoes, but I'd pick my spots, and I used to draw, and I draw little funny pictures and all that. So if you fast forward to college, I managed to sidestep high school without doing any performing of any kind, except occasionally the odd voice here and there, because I went to an all boys private Catholic military school.
Oh, wow.
That was really more about survival than it was about, hey, everybody, look at me, because I was tiny. I was very short, and I was very skinny. And I didn't grow until, I don't know, I came into high school as a freshman. I was 5 feet tall. By the time I graduated, I was 5'10". And then I got up to about just under 6 feet when I was in college. So most of the time it was, hey, don't notice me at all, because I just want to survive. But when I got to college, by the time I was a junior, I transferred to University of Georgia because I grew up in Savannah.
Okay.
And I discovered stand-up comedy and I discovered acting class. And I was up there for a journalism degree, which I have. But once I discovered acting class and once I discovered stand-up comedy, I met some other students that did stand-up at like a local pizza joint that had a basement, it had a bar in the basement. And they would do comedy there like once a month.
Like one of those classic places that you think of that has like the layer of smoke kind of thing. And
it's just about, I mean, it was on a hill. Everything in Athens, Georgia is on a hill.
Okay.
So, the front door is on a hill at the top of it. And then you park down the hill. And then at the bottom, there's the second floor underneath. Huh. And that's where we did stand up. My first time on stage was called Fred Di Toronto's Pizza Restaurant, which is no longer there. And in the basement, it was called Club Fred. And Club Fred, it's about the size of this room. It wasn't very big. And the stage was small, but you get up there and you'd have an audience of students and you'd do your thing. And naturally, in acting class, if we had to do a monologue that you would improv, then I would do voices. And I would always grow up watching impressionists and watching my favorite actors and trying to impersonate them. And then in college, I started to build a stand-up act. And after I graduated, I went home and I started just getting odd jobs so I could save up money because I knew I was going to move somewhere and pursue show business. And I had a friend in college that I did stand-up with. And he said, we should move to Orlando instead of LA. Orlando is where we can sort of get started, get your training wheels off. And I said, that's a good idea. It's cheaper to live there too. So we moved to Orlando. And I started getting the occasional stand-up gig. I did some of it in Savannah. Like my first professional gigs were in Savannah, just emceeing. And then in Orlando, some more of that. Gradually started moving up in the club circuit around the South. I get the occasional acting gig. This is back in 93, 94, where you could just take the yellow pages and the white pages.
Yeah.
See, for you kids watching, the yellow pages and the white pages is this book. And books, by the way, are these paper things. Here's the one I wrote. And it has words in it. And you don't scroll it. You actually turn the pages, right? And you'd look up things. And I cold called an agency in Orlando and said, yeah, I want representation. Can you tell us about yourself? I said, yeah, I do stand up. I did some drama in college and blah, blah, blah. And they said, all right, come on in, make an appointment. I did a monologue for them. And they said, all right, we'll take you on as a client, see what you can do. And my first audition, I booked it. And it was like an industrial commercial for like Armed Forces Television. And I played Barney Fife, which is Don Knotts from the Andy Griffith Show.
Oh.
When I was growing up, everybody knew who Barney Fife was. He's a very comedic character.
And if they didn't know him, they knew Mr. Furley from Three's Company.
Right, exactly. And I could do a pretty good Barney Fife impression. And I showed up like in Barney Fife uniform for the audition and booked it. And I thought, oh, I just have to show up in costume and I get the gig, right? No, it's not that simple. But I got lucky that one. And so gradually over the next 2-3 years, I moved up in the clubs and I booked the occasional stand-up gig in town. I booked the occasional acting gig. I started to do the occasional voice acting gig. And at one point, I got to be known around Orlando, which has, is not a deep talent pool because Orlando's a tourist town. So that does have some acting. And in the 90s it did. But I would do like jobs for Nickelodeon and, for different things around there.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. So this is like, and you actually bring up a good point about the 90s in Orlando. But like, this is the first time I've ever heard anybody say, oh, let's go get our feet wet in Orlando. So that's what I wanted to ask. So you said you were doing the comedy circuit, but were you doing anything at the parks, like emceeing or hosting any? Because I know like a lot of those guys are kind of like,
oh, there was a whole industry of people who were just performers at the parks. There are all kinds of performances you can do at the park. I wasn't really right for any of them. Like I didn't sing, I didn't dance. I could do stand-up, I could do comedy. So you could maybe do audience warm-up or MC a show here and there. And I looked into that, and I don't know why I never got anything like that. I just didn't pursue it because I was doing stand-up. When you're doing stand-up, you got to leave town a lot. And in the 90s, they would do Tuesday through Sunday shows, some of these clubs. And you don't get paid very much because you're the MC, but you're gone. And so if you have to keep leaving town, they're not going to keep you on. In fact, even after I had started to build up a steady resume of working on the road, when I was in Orlando, I thought, you know what? I'm making enough money to live and to save a little bit, but this is around 1995. So I've been there for a little over 2 years. And I thought, I got a couple of buddies, also fledgling comics, and they work on Disney property. They work at the Wilderness, the Wilderness Lodge?
Yeah.
Whispering Canyon Cafe at the Wilderness Lodge in Orlando. And they got me sort of an interview there, and I got hired because I'm a good interview. Mm-hmm. I'm a terrible worker, but I'm a good interview. Right. So I got hired, and you're wearing this cowboy outfit at this sort of frontier themed restaurant, and you're there to sort of perform and serve the food. And you do these songs, but they're they're kind of fun songs. You don't have to be able to sing. And I was good at doing the character stuff. I just wasn't any good at the actual job of serving, which I had done. Like I had a job at Olive Garden in Orlando, and I did that for like a year and a half. Gradually, I quit that because I was doing more stand-up.
Yeah.
And they gradually pretty much fired me at Disney. That was my last day job. Was I think like Christmas of 1995. I got fired.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that was almost 30 years ago. And the reason why they fired me was I was habitually late. One time I didn't even show up because I read the schedule wrong. Another time I had like a wisdom tooth pulled out and I couldn't make it to work, and I didn't have a doctor's note, so they held that against me. And so, and the day they planned on firing me, I was late. So I was late to my own firing.
There you go.
And so I got fired, and I never even made it out of the probationary period. It's a 3-month probationary period. They call it traditions at Disney, right? Everything's coded. I made it 6 weeks, and they fired me. And they said, look, we like you. We'll put you on rehire status, so there's no hard feelings. And within like a year, I got booked to do live video reference modeling for Mulan, the animated feature.
Okay.
So I had auditioned for and gotten a job, like just acting out certain scenes as Shang, like the male lead.
Yeah.
Just to sort of, be this video reference model for the animators. And I told my agent, I said, do they know that Disney fired me? And she said, this is Disney Animation. They don't care what Disney parks do. This is separate. I said, all right.
So that's great. So that's at the time when they were doing the Disney animation tour there. So I guess that's where you were doing that.
No, this was just this was in Orlando. It wasn't that far away from Disney property. In fact, there was one scene. All right, there are 2 scenes in the movie I worked on because they had different people do it. So one scene in the movie where they near the end when they're about to fight the Mongols and they fire a firework or sort of a cannon into Mulan actually fires a cannon and hits the avalanche area above the Mongol army to create an avalanche. And Shang and Mulan have to run from it. And they're running down this hill. That's me running down the hill.
Oh, wow.
That's me telling Mulan, you're the craziest person I've ever met. Something like that as they're lying there and they've just skirted certain death. And there's one where Shang is on a horse and he's hit by an arrow and he falls off his horse. And they had me up on like this chair on a table with pads around me and I had to fall off it. And this is almost 30 years ago that I did all this.
Wow.
So, yeah. But it is funny how all this happens because a year after that, it was in 96. I got this call because I had gotten known around town as somebody who could do different voices. Mm-hmm. So Sound Deluxe is a production facility there. And they said, hey, we're working on this ride for one of the newer theme parks. Can you do a scratch track for us? And a scratch track is where you just do the practice run. You do voices for timing and rhythm, and the animators use it for like a storyboard and sketches and things like that. I said, sure. So it's this superhero ride, and there are all these villains on it, and then there's the hero. Mm-hmm. So do these different voices for it. I thought, oh, okay. So there's Electro, there's Hydro, there's Dr. Octopus. It's okay, I'll do these guys. And then there's the Hobgoblin. Okay. And then Spider-Man's the lead. Okay, well, for Spider-Man, I'll just do me. I'm kind of a smart ass. I think maybe that's what Spider-Man would sound like.
Yeah.
So after doing this for a few months, going in every now and then and helping them out, finally the director of the ride had flown in from LA because he had worked with me once or twice. And he said, "Hey, I want you to be Spider-Man for the actual ride." I said, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, I auditioned everyone in LA and you're the guy I want." I said, "Great." So I ended up, and you can still go on the ride now. It's the Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man ride in Islands of Adventure in Orlando. And I'm Spider-Man and J. Jonah Jameson on that ride. For some reason, they liked my J. Jonah Jameson too. Huh. So yeah. No, and
I was reading that in your bio and I didn't even realize that you were on that. So I was like, holy moly, that's a great ride.
That's something it's my favorite ride. It's something I booked when I lived in Orlando, but it didn't open until 99. And I moved to LA in 97. So I started working on the ride in 97. And then in LA, I finished it up and got to be there for the actual opening of the park. And I've been on the ride a couple of times, but not in a long, long time. So it would be fun to go back on it and hear people reacting to it. Yeah. You know, just to react to stuff I recorded literally 28 years ago.
Oh, and that's funny. That's the thing about these theme park things. I mean, and just television and animation and everything. But
they're there for a long time.
So especially the theme park stuff. Geez, like, I mean, thinking Disney and stuff, some of that stuff has been there 50, 60 years too. So
yeah,
crazy.
So I really did get my feet wet. Pardon me for looking at that. I'm not wearing my contacts. I got to pop these in occasionally. So I got my feet wet in Orlando and I booked a few jobs and I got, SAG eligible is what they call it. If you do one job for the union, you don't have to join right away. And Florida was and still is a right to work state.
Okay.
So there'd be some non-union stuff you could do. And if you haven't joined the union, you're not barred from doing it. So you leave yourself options. Mm-hmm. So I did a scene in Sequest DSV, which was an NBC show. And I didn't know, who I was in the show with, but I did a scene with, let's see, Jonathan Brandis, may he rest in peace. And, she was in Clueless, Brittany
Murphy.
Brittany Murphy, may she rest in peace. Very nice people. Brittany was very sweet. And, we just have our one or two scenes and that was it. And you didn't know that you were kind of hanging out with two big stars, people who would go on to be pretty well-known stars, and that's how it happens sometimes. Those
little pieces. Now, you also said that when you were down there's other things too going on. So I guess Sequest was over at Universal. Were you involved in any of the Nickelodeon was at Universal, and then Disney Channel did all their stuff. Were you involved in any of those productions going on?
Nickelodeon has stuff going on, and I actually I auditioned once for a variety show just to be a guest star on it, just to do a walk-on part. And I didn't know anything about the show because it was geared for kids, and I was busy doing stand-up. I was in the clubs. The only show I was watching regularly was The Simpsons. And that would pay off later. But I didn't know about this show. So I auditioned for this, this role of a vendor who is, this was a show they did in front of a live studio audience. And they would interact with the audience. And I was playing a vendor who kept interrupting their comedy skit. And I was just really annoying. That was my job. And so I booked that. And the show was called All That. And I thought, well, what a cool idea for a show. It's like a kid's sketch show. That's great. These were really talented kids. Everybody was super nice. And I ended up doing a few appearances on that show. Gosh. And then, over a couple of seasons. And they would bring on musical guests. And I usually knew who the musical guests were. Like TLC was a musical guest one time. And, they had some big names. And then they did a spinoff, Kenan Thompson and Kel Mitchell.
Yes.
So they did Kenan and Kel. And I got to do the pilot. I did 3 appearances on Kenan and Kel because the producers knew me and they said, you're perfect for this pilot episode where you just play a guy that sells them a stolen car. So if you watch the pilot, I'm the guy that sells them a stolen car. And then I played 2 other episodes where they had to start deepening the disguise. They said, we can't have you come back as the same guy. So for the ones I had to go as like this sort of surfer dude delivery guy, and they put like a red wig on me. And, I just started sounding like this, dude. So they couldn't tell I was the original guy that sold them a stolen car. And then another season, by the time I'd moved to LA, I'd been there for a year, and they got a hold of me and had me come in. And at that point, they said, we can't have anyone just see your face at all. So I had to play a guy who was at a comic book convention playing a superhero named Mothman. So they had me in a superhero costume with like a cowl, and wings. And I decided to put on a voice like this. So that way I didn't sound like anything. So that one, that was actually, I think my last on-camera gig was 98.
Wow.
Yeah. I pivoted to voice acting only a couple of years later and, didn't look back.
Yeah. So now let me ask you about voice acting and thinking you said you're from Georgia. Is that how you kind of got tied into some of these Cartoon Network shows because they were based out of Atlanta?
Yeah, but that was serendipitous because I never did any show business stuff in Georgia except for doing my local clubs once I was out of college. I'd come back home to Savannah. There was a club called the Comedy House. I don't know if it's still there, but they had a chain. They may still be going on somewhere, but I would do open mic stuff there, and then I would MC, and that was just a way for me to keep my keep my muscles worked out. And when I moved to Orlando, there was nothing happening in Georgia for me. And Georgia became this major production hub over a long time, but it was not that back then. Atlanta always had stuff happening, but nothing like it is now. I mean, it's like Marvel.
It was really just like, it was like Ted Turner and CNN, and that's
exactly. But I mean, it's Tyler Perry and Marvel Central now. But at the time, no, you didn't move to Atlanta to get into show business. It was all Orlando, New York, LA, Chicago. There was some stuff in Miami, but I wasn't going to go all the way down to Miami because it was too far away from everything else. So I was driving to these stand-up gigs. So it was already hard. Yeah, you were booked in North Carolina. It's like, I live in Orlando. It's a day drive. That's going to be rough. But when I moved to LA, I booked the Peter Potamus spot on Harvey Birdman somewhere around, I think, I read for the original show. I read to be Harvey, and I think I read for one other part, which I didn't get, which is fine because the guys who got him, Gary Cole is Harvey, and he's amazing. But I guess I made an impression on them. So a couple of years later, they finally got the show going. And once they got the show going, they, I guess, decided Joe Alasky was the original Peter Potamus for Harvey Birdman. And, he was really funny, but I think he just wasn't quite fitting the rhythm of the show. Like they said, he's not really clicking with the jokes that we like, with the rhythm we like. And so I came in and sort of took that part over. And it's a little different than the way Joe did it. Like Joe's may Joe rest in peace, really talented guy. Yeah. But, Joe's Peter Potamus was a little like, this, and he'd have the sort of a, what the, and I'm not doing him exactly right. So I'm not Joe, but, so I would sort of go in kind of doing like that. And they liked this. They liked the way he would talk, the way I made him talk. And they would have me push that. They would even write certain things. Like he wouldn't say sandwich. He'd say sandwich, like with a G. And he wouldn't say you. He'd say you, And so they said, keep pushing that. And so before I knew it, Peter Potamus would sound like this. Did you get that thing I sent you? And they would have the best time pushing that as far as we could take it. So, and they're based in Atlanta. They would come out to LA and record us. And
oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, this was back in the aughts where they didn't remote record very much. They would actually fly out and be there for the actual record.
And you guys would all really be sitting together as opposed to being
sometimes once or twice I recorded with somebody. I recorded with David Koechner once. He played a sort of a guest star arc, I think, on the show. So I recorded with him, and that was fun. I recorded with Mark Hamill one time because he was Ricochet Rabbit, and I had him sign my script. And this is before he jumped back into the conventions and the Star Wars universe. He was just doing his thing. I mean, just crushing it in voice acting. Yeah. And he is a Mount Rushmore level voice actor. I put him up there. But he was the nicest guy. And we were just sitting there joking and having a good time. And And I would be amazed at how he could do the voice of Ricochet Rabbit. Sounds nothing like him. And so it's Ricochet Rabbit and Peter Potamus. And I would watch sometimes when I'd be done, another actor would come in. I would watch Peter McNichol play X the Eliminator. And my God, he killed me. I would laugh so hard watching him do his thing. And Paget Brewster was Bird Girl. And I once saw Paget do an entire session of her character for that episode and not blow a single line, not mess up a single word. Every single take was perfect. I've never seen that. I've worked with some of the most talented people you could ever be around. And even they occasionally flub a line. Paget did the entire episode. No mistakes.
Wow. That's great.
I've never, and I'm going on about 25 years doing this, never seen that happen before nor since. Never seen it.
Wow. So now let me ask you, because you're mentioning people like Mark Hamill, you're mentioning Joe Alaskan, and this is going to just backtrack a little bit. When you were doing all these voices, in high school, and even the impersonations of people, who were some of your role models, even in the world of stand-up comedy? Who are the people that really got you in there? Like, I mean, I think in the world of animation, I told you I'm a big Hanna-Barbera geek, like Dawes Butler, Don Messick, obviously Mel Blanc, June Frey, Paul Frees, all those guys. Who are some of your role models? Who are you doing the voices of?
I think you got to put Mel Blanc at the top. I mean, he's sort of Mount Rushmore by himself. I did love Paul Frees's voice. I especially remember him from the Rankin Bass holiday specials. Mr. Heat Miser, Mr. Freeze, and was it Mr. Freeze or can't remember, but I'll be watching that one soon because tis the season.
Yeah.
I always thought there was something really special about his voice. It would just cut through everything. Yeah. And obviously I didn't know half the time I was listening to June Foray. I was just so used to hearing that voice.
Yeah.
And then imagine one day, I don't know, 30 years later, I meet her. She's there to read for something. She's there to record something that I'm also recording. And I'm just talking to this sweet little old lady in her 90s thinking, I can't believe I'm talking to Rocky the Flying Squirrel, So idolized all of them. And when it came to sort of impressionists, Rich Little was the guy I grew up with. So I grew up watching Rich Little, who is still with us. And Rich did all the classic impressions. And I would do everybody. I would try to do everyone he did. And then I would sort of try and discover a few of my own. So as far as voice acting goes, got to go with Mel, Paul. Actually, I can't remember the voice actor's name who did Fred Flintstone, but I saw every Flintstones ever.
Well, there's the original Alan Reed, and then Henry Corden took over then.
Right. I think I'm going with Alan Reed then because, I mean, I liked them both. And let's see. I think Mel did Barney.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. For a time, at least. They sort of switched. Yeah. And then let's see. Rich Little for impressions. And let's see. I would say for stand-up, I originally I would watch anybody. I really would. I remember watching the sort of the new Laugh-In. Now, the original Laugh-In was in the late 60s and was hugely popular. And then they brought it back in the late 70s, and I used to watch that. And there was a comic on there called Crazy Lenny Schultz. Google Crazy Lenny Schultz. He's hysterical. It's the silliest stuff you've ever seen, but he sort of started prop comedy. And he would do the most ridiculous things on Laugh-In, the new Laugh-In. And then he did a show called Make Me Laugh, which I used to watch. And I used to love that. And that was a late 70s game show where a contestant would have to sit in a chair and 3 comedians would come out and have 1 minute each to try to make you laugh. And if they made you laugh out loud, you lost. But for every minute you could go without laughing, you would win $1. And, in the late 70s, you could win $180. That's good money.
That's good. Absolutely. I mean, I'll take $180 now.
Right. But I used to watch that show, and I would learn about stand-up by watching that show without knowing that I was going to become a stand-up comic. And then, obviously, I would watch Richard Pryor, even though I wasn't supposed to because he was dirty. And then I would watch Bill Cosby, and he was clean. But now I realize maybe Mom should have been more worried about me watching Bill Cosby. So,
Who knew?
Yeah. Who knew? None of that aged well at all.
No.
Yeah, America's Father, really. And George Carlin. Those were my guys.
Can't go wrong with Carlin.
Exactly. Can't go wrong with Carlin before or since. I mean, his comedy really changed over the course of his career, though.
Yeah.
He became much more pointed and much more satirical and much more political. And after a while, he even transcended politics. He was just there to comment on life and how you, as John Fugelsang, somebody I like to listen to, says, Carlin always said that when you're born, you get a free ticket to the freak show. And if you live in America, you get a front row seat.
There you
just enjoy the show.
There you go. So we have a couple of questions that some folks watching are in there. But before we jump to those, one of the main reasons why we're here tonight talking about your appearance up in Saratoga.
Yeah,
so
can't wait.
Joining us live is the man who makes Saratoga happen, and this is gonna be a first time meeting for you, Chris. But let's welcome Sam Chase to our little chat here.
Hey,
everyone.
Three pasty white guys wearing glasses. What are the odds?
Well, Mike's my half brother. So
yeah, look at us, right?
Well, then the odds are better than I thought. Okay.
So yeah. Well, welcome. I guess, or should I be welcomed? I don't know.
Thank you for having me.
Oh yeah, thank you for coming. I was it was funny story how it happened. So an agent did something they shouldn't have, not your agent, but and so I was like, I really need somebody, and I'm like, Apex Legends. I looked at the list and I was like, oh, that's right, he has Chris. So Pathfinder, and that's the reason you're here is because I play that. I put probably about 5 weeks of my life into that game, so that was
really?
Like, all right, I gotta have him. Yes.
Then 5 weeks you said this game is too hard, I'm out.
Well, I mean 5 weeks can as in if you add it all together, probably.
Oh really? Okay.
Yeah, that, and also Uncharted, all that stuff. I think Uncharted, I have about 6 weeks of my life into online.
That's rolling north there. You're gonna see both of us there. So.
Oh yeah. I was really happy to have you. So
if you guys put us on a panel, it's just gonna be the two of us trying to make each other laugh, and everyone else in the audience is just incidental. Because that's what we did 20 years ago. We were at the same, we still are at the same agency. We would sit in the waiting room before our turn to go in and read, and just back and forth, do voices, and just say completely inappropriate things, just trying to crack each other up. And I
think that would be an entertaining panel. Our bigger problem was that everything was already set in stone because like you were assigned late due to this situation.
This is pretty last minute for me to do a con. Usually, usually this far out, nothing changes. So
and unfortunately, it's like all the panels were set, so we weren't able to like get you into a panel. But you're gonna be so busy. You're gonna be so busy. I don't think you're gonna be able to be on a panel. So to be honest,
with an accident,
if you knew Saratoga,
they can't make a panel. I don't know why they broke their leg. I just saw some redhead running away, cackling, and I don't know. Anyway, Chris is available. We heard.
Yeah, no. Well, we're happy to have you, and it's very exciting to have somebody from Apex Legends, and also a ton of other voices too. Just being at our events, everybody loves anime, everybody loves whatever cartoons, it's really big, right, Mike? It's pretty popular.
Huge.
The lines are miserable.
And I was sharing. So I don't know if you caught the beginning of this, and I was just sharing it, and for everybody at home. So I mean, you come up to Saratoga Comic-Con. It's in Saratoga Springs. Chris was saying this is his first time in the Hudson Valley. And I mean, outside of the Comic-Con, the weather's still relatively nice here. It's not too cold, not too hot. There's so much to do in Saratoga. So if you're coming up for the Comic-Con, there's just a lot in that little strip there.
Yeah, like I won't have any time to do anything, but you lovely people, when you're done with the con, you'll have more.
I'm gonna sleep on Tuesday after the con, Monday I've got to bring everybody back to the airport. But yeah, there's so much to do. Like right now, I'm just hopping on really quickly. We just got done working. I've been working since I think 7, just now in the office and getting everything organized. It's insane right now. So there's a lot to get together, all these little tiny things, like hundreds of things you got to put all together just to bring and then to execute at the event. So but yeah, very tiring days ahead of me. So
so it's okay. So but you're gonna pop by during the con, right? Say hello.
I'm gonna try. A lot of times I go home. So because there's so much that happens, I have to go back home, or not home, back to the office, grab things, come back. I mean, it's just constant dealing. Every con behind the scenes is so much fun for the audience, which is what we want. Yeah. But behind the scenes, just like with a stage show or anything, there's always fires you're just constantly putting out, and nobody knows they're sitting in the audience enjoying, but they don't really know what's happening in the background. So that's part of my job. Is people are like, oh, don't you have fun at the con? Don't you dress up? And I'm like, no. Like it's a job.
I make sure you guys have fun.
Exactly. And I think that's the greatest part about my job. And that's a fun part about my job, is knowing people are happy, seeing them smiling, all these different things. I'm like, okay, the job's being accomplished, so yeah, it's that's really a fun time. So that's what makes me happy. So
if you still main Pathfinder, then the very least I can do is let you go with the voice line.
All right.
So,
so I can go back. Yeah.
Now, what do you like to go by when you play? Do you have a handle, or you just go by, whatever? When you
yeah, it's Chase Mail. Yeah, so that's
Chase Mail.
Yeah,
okay.
Chase Mail.
All right. So, hi everybody, it's your friendly neighborhood Pathfinder. Who's ready to fly on a zip line with me and Chase Mail? I am.
Oh, that's awesome. I love hearing you do the voice because it's embedded in my head for the past, 5 years now?
Yeah.
Right? We're up to 5 years.
I think I auditioned for that game maybe in 2017, and we started recording it in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. But, it's just me. It's just me being me, but being the supremely optimistic and hopelessly naive version of me. He's a walking dad joke, is what I call Pathfinder.
Everyone I talk to loves you because they're like, oh, he's so funny. He has like such funny lines, and we're like playing the game, and they'll like click on the thing to like make you say something, or you'll just randomly say something. It just makes you laugh, and I think that's fun. I think making people laugh and joy in people's lives, just even as they're killing all these other people. It's funny. It's it keeps you humored, and it's hard to say how people. It's funny how you just go and you just do this as a job or whatever, but you don't know how you're changing someone's life or making their day feel better. And I think that's a phenomenal thing that a lot of voice actors don't. Some of them don't realize, there's like, oh yeah, but do the voice. And it's like, well, sometimes you're changing people's lives, and got them. It's really kind of cool, or either just getting them through the day with a joke or whatever, so.
That's what appearing in a con does for you. It puts you in touch with the people who are playing these things or watching these things while you're busy living your life. They're, like you say, they're really invested in this, and it is nice to see it. It's I like connecting with people anyway. So I always enjoy just saying hello and chatting with people, and there'll be times where somebody will feel kind of self-conscious because they'll say, I don't have any money to buy anything. And I'll say, that's fine. What do you want to talk about? Right. And sometimes we'll just chat, and they'll have a question or two. Somebody always asks, how do I get into the business? Things like that. And I'm fine with that. I don't usually have, like, I'm not Steve Bloom. Steve is usually, it's just the line is, he is the convention usually. Yeah. And Steve's great. He deserves it. He's done all the work for it. But I usually don't have that kind of a line. And so I have a moment here and there to be able to just talk with somebody. That's great. And Steve would too, by the way, if he didn't have an entire mall lined up behind his booth. Right. So
that's how I think a lot of people are going to come see you. So, or at least trickles.
I will be there. That's what I'm good for. Is I'm like a slow, steady. I'm like a little brook that just keeps sort of babbling along. There's always somebody there, right? But the really good time with it.
And the good thing, like we were talking about, Chris, is like you've been in such a variety of things that people just know. you know.
I find it interesting. The two things I get the most attention for are Hedon and Pathfinder, and they couldn't be more opposite of each other. Like when people come up and they want something signed, it's almost always Hedon and Pathfinder, or it's majority that. Now, Zeus from Record of Ragnarok is starting to become a little more known. I don't know. Somehow, I think more people are aware of that show. And Gobber from DreamWorks Dragons, I think now the kids who have grown up with that are getting into the age where they have, you know, they have the wherewithal to go to a convention. So I'm starting to see more of that. But I still think the juxtaposition of Hedon and Pathfinder, they're nothing like each other. Right? They don't talk like each other. They don't sound like each other, but they do have one thing in common. They both enjoy murdering. They do murder a lot of people. So there is that.
Yeah. I probably killed a few thousand with the Pathfinder. I have to say that. So.
They both have substantial body counts.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's funny, man. Oh. Yeah. But I wasn't expecting that. I like that. So.
Yeah, well, now you know.
Yeah.
But thank you, Sam, for popping on. Yeah, so and again, folks, come and see Sam this weekend. Chris and I are going to chat for a little bit more.
If you see Sam, give him a Red Bull or a Monster drink. He's probably going to need it.
Sugar free.
Yeah, sugar free.
Because it's going to be a little crazy. I'm already we're well ahead right now, but we're just there's 600 emails that aren't answered yet. So tonight I'm doing that, and tomorrow morning and throughout the days. Also social media. I like to apologize to anybody I haven't gotten back to yet. There's several of us working on this. There's just a lot. When you have 10,000 at a show, that's kind of
Well, 580 of those emails are from me, and I apologize.
Are they?
I just want to make sure I'm going to have my peanut M&Ms next to my headshots and all that, and then everything else will be fine.
All right. Do you want peanut M&Ms in the? Yeah. No. Tell me what you want in the green room before I go.
Yeah,
I have to hear. Actually,
right.
I want to hear what a celebrity wants in a green room before I go.
Me too. When I meet one, I'll tell you. Yeah. You know what? My one thing is always the same thing. Room temp water. Room temp bottled water is fine. And I'm a happy.
We give you cold water. That's we're
cold water is fine, but it'll freeze up your vocal cords, and then you can't hit some of the things. And somebody might want to hear Hedon doing his ritual, or they might want to hear Gobber, and then it's harder when the vocal cords are frozen a bit. It's harder for me to sound like Gobber. No, to be careful. Room temp, if you don't mind, sir.
All right. I'll make note of that and make sure that the celebrity coordinator will take care of that, definitely. So I don't think there's anything else I gotta say. I don't think so. But the green room is well stocked, so you'll have fun there. So,
great. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, just make sure this guy here, my brother, my brother doesn't eat it all. So yeah, so maybe they'll think all three of us are brothers if they see us together.
There we go.
Yeah, I want to see at least one of those. I guess Saturday night's the only night we're really gonna have a chance to eat, at a restaurant, and so hopefully something nearby. I'm sure you guys rave about them.
There's a wonderful Italian restaurant out there. There's a El Mexicano. It's fantastic. Mike, what's that sushi place or whatever it is?
Hibachi place. I forgot the name. So there's
amazing. Saratoga's known for restaurants.
So. Okay, I think an Italian restaurant virtually anywhere in New York would be above board.
It's in the same parking lot as a hotel. They share the same parking lot.
Oh yes,
walk right over. Yeah.
Gotcha. All right, we'll probably end up hitting something like that.
All right, great. Well, all righty. I shall go back to work, and I got another 3 hours left. So
Oh man.
Those emails. So, all right. Again, great meeting you. I'm going to see you in a few days.
Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. You let me know if you need anything else. So, all right. Bye, guys.
Thank you so much. One.
Thanks, Sam.
You guys too. Bye. Bye, Mike. See ya.
So, yeah, and he bring up a good point. Sam and you were saying the point of these conventions is that you've touched all these people in many different ways that you. Working in that studio, you have no clue what you're doing. So I mean, you hear these stories all the time, I'm sure.
Well, the interesting thing about stand-up comedy is you're in front of an audience, and so you adjust your performance in real time, depending upon how they're reacting to things, and you make adjustments right then and there, and you feed off their energy. When you're doing a record, you have your script in front of you. Mm-hmm. You might get a chance to ad lib. A lot of directors will at least give you a chance after you've given them the takes they need. Mm-hmm. But the only people you're bouncing things off of are the director and the engineer, and sometimes there's a writer there, and they're on the other side of the glass. Now, if you're lucky, you're going to record in the round with other cast members, but that doesn't happen as much anymore.
Yeah,
because everyone can record remotely. I mean, let's take a look. I'll show you right now. That's my home studio. Mm-hmm. So right here, I walk right in, boom. So, this is my home office, and when it's time for me to record, my commute is very short. Yeah, but a lot of other people on the project are doing the same thing. They're recording at home. Now, some people don't really have a home setup that they like very much, or that is quite suitable. Mine is professionally done. It's lavocalbooths.com if anyone's interested. They did a great job, and it's a nice professional setup. Everything I've recorded for The Simpsons in the past, 3 years has been out of that booth that makes it to broadcast. So, you're not getting a chance to record with other people. Now, sometimes you'll do a table read with other people. Sometimes it'll be Zoom, but sometimes it'll be in person. And that's what I really love, because you've got an audience. You've got a bunch of people there to listen to it, writers, producers, guests sometimes, and you're working with the rest of the cast, and you're feeding off each other. Mm-hmm. So I always tell people that are looking to get into it, if you can get into any kind of live performing, do it. Yeah. It's going to give you an edge. Voice acting is acting. And it doesn't mean you have to get into a play, but it sure wouldn't hurt. And it doesn't mean you have to try stand up, but it sure wouldn't hurt. So it doesn't mean you have to join a sketch group, but it sure wouldn't hurt. Because when I was doing auditions for commercials or for animation, especially commercials, I think the stand-up background gave me a natural advantage, because a lot of commercials are written humorously. I could spot the jokes, I could get the rhythm, and I didn't need to warm up. I didn't need to study my lines very much. I just am one of those people that can just pick up the script, and as I'm reading it, give you a performance. And a lot of that, I think, was from doing stand-up.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you in regards to stand-up, and I know because you talked about like like acting and being in a play and stuff. Improv for stand-up, for voice acting, how important is improv? Very. I mean, there are going to be times when the director may not straight up ask you to improv a line, but they're going to create space for you to have an idea or two. And a lot of times you may not change anything about the actual text of the line, but you may change how it's being read, and you can create an entirely new joke out of how you choose to read it. And being versed in some sort of live performing where you have to think on your feet, very important. With stand-up, I know comics who do their same act word for word every single night because they've written it that way. They've written it to be done in a specific fashion, and they may slow down their pace or speed it up. They may choose a different inflection based on the crowd, or they may take longer to get to a certain bit if they have to. But for the most part, they've discovered how they want to do it, and they don't alter it very much at all. It works fine for them. Gotcha.
I've worked with other comics that they love to play. They love to try different things. And I always admired that, because it takes a little bit of courage, because if it doesn't go well, you've lost them, and you got to be able to get them back. And I worked with one comic who said, you know what? I'd been doing my act for a few years, and I had a pretty good act, and it was working for me. But I thought, I want to spice this up and make this more fun. So every show, in the middle of my show, when it was protected by a bunch of material that had already worked and a bunch of material that was going to come after it that was going to work, I'm going to choose 5 minutes. I'm just going to improv. I'll either it'll be crowd work or I'll just come up with whatever, and I'll follow that idea. And who cares if it bombs, it bombs. It's 5 minutes in the middle of a 30 or 45-minute set. I'll recover. And I always thought that was pretty good advice. And I would sometimes do that. But by the time I got to where I was ready to leave the road because I was getting burned out and I just wanted to do voice acting, I wasn't really experimenting with my act too much at that point. I was ready to just pursue voice acting. And so moving up in the clubs wasn't the same, didn't have the same priority for me. But even after I just did voice acting, I would sometimes still do the occasional stand-up show around town in LA. And then I noticed how much fun I had when I didn't have to worry about getting booked at this particular club again. Oh, I've got to kill for this long, or they're not going to have me back, or I'm trying to move up to headliner and there's a lot of pressure on me. When I already knew that I was working in voice acting and I didn't care if the audience at this stand-up show liked me or not. I suddenly, my stand-up buddies told me, you know what? We actually think you've become a better comedian when you stopped caring. You take more chances, you have more fun, you're more inventive. And it's not like they thought I was a bad comic before. They just thought, that I found a different gear. I think there's something to be said for that, for not being afraid to fail.
Well, I mean, you mentioned I've heard stories of other actors and stuff too, who like, I'm gonna audition for this part, but I don't care because I know I'm not gonna get it.
Right.
And all of a sudden, they got it.
It happens that way. Speaking of Apex Legends, the actress who plays Wraith, Chantel Van Santen, I interviewed her for my YouTube channel a few years back. And she said when she auditioned for an on-camera part she got on a show called For All Mankind, she said, when I did the audition, I thought I was awful. Whatever it was they asked me to do, I wasn't ready for it. I didn't think I did a good job. I walked out of there thinking, well, that was a crash and burn. And as she was driving home, she called her manager and said, look, just please apologize to them for me that I was as bad as I was. I just wasn't feeling it. And, I'm better than that. And the manager said, well, it's funny you called because they already called me to offer you the part. She said, what? She said, they love what you did. She said, well, whoever that girl was they love, she can't act. And so, I don't know what they wanted, but they loved it. So just, sometimes you don't know you got something working for you, and, just go in there and do your best. It's not up to you.
And I want to ask you this because I know we're coming to the end here. The one thing I wanted to ask you too, which I always like to ask people in the business, we talked about all these inspirations, Rich Little, we talked about Alan Reed, Mel Blanc, all these. When you go in as a voice actor, finding your own voice, because that's great. And again, you've done characters who have already been established, but then you've also done your own characters. What is your method? What is your strategy in finding your own voice? Because that's great. You can go in there and you can do Fred Flintstone, you can do Barney Fife. But people, there's either the actor like Don Knotts, or there's many people who do Fred.
Okay.
So how do you find your voice? Hello, how are
my wife, Gigi. She'll be at Saratoga too. She always travels with me.
Getting ready to enjoy the beautiful Hudson Valley.
Yes. Yeah, and it's good that we're wrapping it up. So apparently I'm supposed to leave in 5 minutes. All right. So no problem. So how do I find the voice for a character? Well, it depends on what they write for you, because they have something called the breakdown where they give you a character description, and you take that and either you decide to follow it, or sometimes you say, you know what, I'm going to do the opposite of that because I'll bet you everyone's going to give the exact same read and I'm not interested in that. Sometimes I do that. But, a lot of it is just trusting your gut. A lot of this, it is not scientific. It is winging it. It is trusting the skill set you have built from Lord knows how many hours of doing this. And I've done probably 1,000 stand-up shows in my career. And I've done probably, I don't know how many hundreds of animation episodes and a couple of hundred commercials and, over 100 video games. You put a lot of time in and you just build up this muscle. And some of what you're building up is instinct. is trusting an impulse and seeing if it works and being able to capitalize on that impulse. Okay, I wonder what it would sound like if so-and-so was from here. Well, you need to be able to do that. It'd be great if you sounded German. Well, if you don't know how to do a convincing German, you're not going to do a very good job of following your impulse. So it's not that I am perfect at that, but I could at least give you a jumping off point. Yeah. So there it is. So yeah, instinct, just trust it. But one way to trust your instinct, do something a lot.
Yeah.
Do it, get you 10,000 hours in. Then you'll trust yourself more.
Excellent. And I think that's a perfect way to end. I mean, that's the purpose of doing these things, is to find out best ways to get into the business, hear the stories of people like you. Because it's a great business. It touches lives of many. And I mean, certainly you've influenced a lot of people. A lot of people enjoy the work that you've done. So again, it's a pleasure to have you on here tonight. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in a few days here in New York.
We will be there. So I'm looking forward to it too. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And so everybody watching, come out to Saratoga. If you're in the New York area, Saratoga Springs, Saratoga Comic-Con this weekend. Come and see Chris. Also, if you will get a chance, go to chrisedgerly.com. You can follow Chris on Instagram. We didn't even get to talk. I wanted to talk about.
You can buy this book.
You have a Kickstarter going right now.
I do. This is book 1, Soldier of Ages, Tetton Hall. Book 2, Soldier of Ages, Battle of the Bulge, is funded, but I'm trying to reach a stretch goal so I can have the resources to do an audiobook for 1 and 2, which I will narrate. But yeah, go to Kickstarter. It's Soldier of Ages 2, Battle of the Bulge. It's a sci-fi history story about an elite soldier who travels through time to fight in battles across human history. The first one is Tetton Hall, which is 10th century England. Second one, the Battle of the Bulge, 1944, December, in Belgium, in the Ardennes Forest, in the frigid cold. We're coming up on the 80th anniversary of it.
Yeah.
So if you like sci-fi, you like history, I think you'll enjoy these.
Yeah. And listen, like you said, it's good to support books. People don't buy them.
Yeah, actual books. Look, you read them, you hold them, you don't get, your eyes don't dry up from staring at a screen. It's awesome.
Nice way to go. Yeah, relax, have a nice book. So
yeah,
Chris, thank you so much, guys. Come and
thank you
in Saratoga. And we'll just hold off 1 second after we end the stream, Chris. And we'll see everybody next time and IncrediChat, and we'll see you this weekend in Saratoga. Have a good night, everyone.
See you, everybody.